Okay, for this drawing we have a fireplace with a stove built in. More often than not nowadays, it's not just a fireplace, most houses have stoves installed in various different ways. So we basically have a foundation, which is a bit wider on the bottom, and cavity wall just built up. There's extra work, block work there called jambs, which give extra support underneath the fireplace. The floor work then is kind of the same along here. We've hardcore sand blinding insulation, concrete slab. We've got the hearth there, H-E-A-R-T-H, the fire hearth there. We've got the fire back and the cement, and this is the chimney work here. We've got the flues as well in place there. This is the wood burning stove. Stoves come in various shapes and sizes. For the sake of our drawing, we'll just draw it in as a rectangle to show the position of it. Stoves can also come in various different ways. Sometimes the pipe goes into the back, sometimes it comes out of the top and goes into the side there, sometimes it's built into the fireplace. In this particular case, we'll just draw it in that position there. Okay, just to help, it's a little bit hard to visualize what we have there. This works all the way up there. Just to help understand that, on page 212 of our book, we have sort of 3D images. So this is the whole thing that's been sort of sliced in half. So as we can see there, the fire back, the flue, the chimney, all of that you can see up along here. That's the position of what it looks like. This here, they're called jambs. There's a jamb either side, or coarse work. It's extra block work either side. That is represented here. That's the jamb. You can see in your book as well, when I strip back a bit further, there's the jamb either side of the fireplace. There's just an entranceway for the chimney, and there's the fire back that goes back in there. So by looking at these two drawings here, it helps you to give an understanding of what we have here. And because of all the extra block work and the section where the fireplace is, the foundation is that little bit wider. Okay, so we'll start drawing that. The page is in portrait orientation. As always, we have it well neatly laid out with a border and title box in place, and the usual equipment. We've got a T-square, we've got a 2H and our H pencils, we've got a rubber, 60-30 set square, 45-degree set square, and pens for any of the pen work that needs to be done. Alright, so scale is 1 to 10, so any measurements that we do, we're going to divide them down by 10. We'll start by doing everything light first, and then work our way. We can darken in anything that needs to be darkened as time goes on. We'll start nice and low. We're going to work on the foundation. It's a wider foundation. We're going to go 1500 by 350. Alright, that's going to be down there. So I'm going to zoom in slightly. Our foundation, as always, is just simply a rectangle. I'm going to pick a point over here to the left. I'm going to draw a light line across. I'm going to measure 1500, divide that by 10. That's going to be 15 centimeters or 150 millimeters. Mark those there. Extend up, and it's still 350. So that's 35 millimeters. Like so. Get my rubber and rub out any of those lines that are missing there. And that is the position of that wider part of the foundation. Now that only gets wider underneath the fireplace. That foundation will get back to the normal size after that. Now the wall itself, so as it gets wider, the wall is actually still, it's not quite in the center of this foundation, because this foundation will get narrower. So we're still going to go across 35 and 35 to get the position of the actual wall. So we're going to focus on just drawing the cavity wall as high as we possibly can. So we're going to measure across 35 and 35. We're going to extend the line lightly up randomly there and there. I'm going to go a little bit higher with those now as well, because we're going to need to go quite a bit. so the cavity wall, we've got 100 millimeters for the external leaf and 100 millimeters for the internal leaf. Extend those lines up there. Like so. Now we have the wall extended up nice and high up the page there. A random distance, just nice and high up the page for the moment. We'll start marking in some blocks. So as you know, the blocks are 225 millimeters high, so that's 22 millimeters, 22.5 millimeters per block. Just going to mark in all those positions. All the way up. So we're going to need plenty of those. So a good number of blocks all the way up the drawing. I'll draw in the joints for each of those blocks now. Okay, so we've got a nice number of blocks drawn into place there now. To show what we've done, basically so far we've drawn in the position foundation, we've drawn the external leaf blocks, and we've drawn the internal leaf blocks. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go up 3 blocks and we're going to go out and draw the ground level outside, the soil and muck. Then we're going to go across from there and we're going to do our sand blinding, our hardcore, and this extra block work which is not normally there. And as we know, this block work represents the jambs that are either side of the fireplace, supporting those jambs. So we're going to go up 3 blocks, 1, 2, 3. We're going to draw a line out to the left, a random angle up like so. We'll get that in there. That's going to just represent the soil outside. Okay. Put that there. And directly across from that, that's going to allow us to draw a line. We're going to let that be a line there, so we can draw down sand blinding and whatever else we need to do. So 40 millimeters for sand blinding. Like so. Sand blinding is represented with dots. Okay, and then we are going to measure across from here. That block work, the length of the block is 445 millimeters. So we're going to draw that there and extend that up. And that's going to show that extra block work there. So it's kind of got those positions, the block work is kind of worked around. So we've got the end of a block there, you've got a side of a full block there, and so on. Okay, so we will draw that one straight across. Here we'll actually rub that out because it's built into it. Like so. And there is the block work for that jam drawn into place there. Alright, so as we said, that block work represents these things either side, it's underneath either side of those, supporting the foundation, the extra weight of the fireplace and so on. We'll just draw in some hardcore then up against that. So 150 millimeter layers of hardcore, and we scale that down, it's 15 millimeters. There, 3 layers, and the final one we can just bring up at a bit of an angle there. The usual symbol work for hardcore, a couple of lines at 45 degrees. Like so. And work those down. So, and there's our hardcore complete. Above our hardcore we have our sand lining already in. We're going to draw our insulation across there, 100mm, and up here, and then we're going to do 150mm of our concrete floor. That's just the usual work that's done. So 100mm for insulation. Okay, we'll do, again, there's 30mm insulation on the side there, and we're just going to bring that up lightly first of all until we get the height of the floor. So 150mm solid concrete floor goes up along there, like so. We can rub out any bits there, any light work or heavy work, the usual way of working things, and we'll do the symbol work then for those bits of insulation. And then we've got to get the symbol work. We'll just do a small bit of this work here for the sake of the video. The insulation across there. Like so. And then we've got concrete here for the floor itself. Now, what we'll just do next there is, before we go on to the actual fireplace section, we'll do a small bit more work with the wall. We'll draw in our concrete infill, we'll draw in the insulation and the inside of the wall, and we'll do the radon barrier and DPC before we go on to the slightly more complicated parts, right? So the concrete infill goes usually around ground level, and the concrete is there to support the wall underground. Our radon barrier with red pen is going to run along the top of the sand blinding up the first block there, across the first block there. You can go straight down, or else you can go over at an angle like so, and in like that. Okay, DPC, black pen there, there, and then our insulation will start at maybe somewhere around here. Sometimes it can go lower, doesn't really matter too much in this instance. 100mm, which works out at 10, and we extend the cavity insulation all the way up. I'll do a small bit of the symbol work there for the insulation, but for the sake of the video we won't spend too long going all the way up. So our cavity insulation works its way up like so. Okay, so we pretty much have the majority of the work done in terms of what we'd normally be familiar with. The wall is all done, the floor work is all done, and now we're ready to look at the actual hearth, the fireplace and the stove itself. Okay, that's all going to go in that area there. The one part so far that's been new has been this extra block work underneath the ground level. Okay, so the next part that we're going to look at here now, the next part is where it gets quite new to us. The next part we're going to look at is, we're going to skip up past this part and this part. We're going to actually go in and do the chimney stack itself. Alright, now a few things to note. First of all, what we have here is like a concrete, it's like a lintel as well, it's like a support. So again, if I was to take my book and look at this, this is a pre-made concrete lintel basically. It's a flue gathering lintel, and that rests on the two jambs, and that supports the wall that's going to be built above that. Okay, so again, so if you were to slice through that there, what you would have is something like this. Okay, so these two things here represent the concrete lintel that's carrying the weight of the chimney above. Now this orange inside, these orange members are known as flue liners. If I take my phone and have a look at these pictures here, that there is what's known as a flue liner. Okay, those flue liners come in various shapes and sizes. Okay, angles and so on. There's angled ones, and there's some there that come like angles. Alright, depending on what you're trying to do. But those flue liners work their way up, they're fireproof, and they work their way up through the chimney. They guide the smoke out up through the chimney. Those orange members represent the flue liners. Now if you were to look at the top of that flue liner, there's sort of a lip up here. They allow each one to slot in. So if you look at this sketch, the flue liners all slot into each other and they're kind of bonded using mortar in place. Alright, so what we're going to do is, we're going to draw in the precast concrete lintel, we're going to draw in the flue liners. In between the flue liner and the actual wall, there's just kind of an infill cement kind of holding it all in place, and there's some block work working its way up there. The height of the fireplace, again, these can all vary, so we're not going to overthink the height too much. I like to just go up 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks maybe, 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks, and kind of work your lintel and your fireplace up that way. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks, and I'm going to say, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to just draw a line across there lightly, and I'm going to make that fourth block this line here, 1, 2, 3, 4, at the bottom of that, there and there. So that's where my precast concrete lintel is going to go. Now the width and the height of these flue liners is they're usually roughly about 250 millimeters wide. Alright, there's usually about 10 or 100 or so millimeters of concrete infill there. Again, that can vary as well. So overall, we're going to go out 450 millimeters for that block work. So we're going to go out 450. I'm going to draw a line straight up there. Like so. Okay, so that gave us a full 450. Now I'm going to measure in 100 millimeters, and it's going to allow me to draw in some blocks up along there. And I'm going to just draw the joints of the blocks by lining up with the joints here. So the same joints on the block work. Like so. Okay, so that's going to give me the block work on that. Now this gap between the block work and the flue liners can vary, usually roughly 180, 90, 100 millimeters. So what I'm going to do from there is I am going to measure in about 80 millimeters, we'll say. Maybe a little bit less, maybe about 60 millimeters, we'll say. And I'm going to make that the start, or the line, of my flue liners. Like so. The height of a flue liner is usually roughly around 450 millimeters. So I'm going to go up 450, which is 45. I'm going to freehand, slight angle like so, straight across 2 or 3 millimeters. Freehand back down like so, and that's one side of that flue liner. Again, the width of these flue liners, we're going to make 250. And I'm going to do the same thing again. I'll just bring those lines over. So, draw that in like so. That will allow us then to draw up the next flue liner up there. Again, a height of 450. And for the sake of the drawing, we'll just get 2 of those drawn in. Like that. And the same over here. Something like that. Right. So get those a little bit neater, maybe get them drawn in place. Get a rubber and rub that out. All that work there, and that is your flue liners in place there. That kind of leads you then, whatever's left over can be your sort of cement mix to fill in those gaps and hold it all nice and rigidly into place. And then this, the lintel itself, again we can just draw in our own angle on that. They'll vary in shape and size, and that will have that for us, there and there, and just some reinforcement steel in there on that. Alright, so there is the chimney part of it, and we now need to bring ourselves down to the fire back itself. Okay, now the fire back itself, these come in various shapes and sizes. There's just some infill cement there and the actual fire back. So that's basically, this unit here is rest in on that. Shape and size can vary. We're going to draw a shape similar to that, similar size to that. So I'm going to measure across, let's say 170 millimeters. I'm going to go, so I've measured across 170 millimeters there. I'm going to go up here, roughly that height, go at angle here, angle there, and an angle there, just to get that shape in. And I'm going to do something similar then. The fire back itself, and that will work fine for that. We're not going to overthink the shape and size of that. That's just going to show you your position there. Alright, so that there is kind of an infill cement, and this here is the fire back in position. Okay, next thing we'll draw is the hearth itself. That's just the granite that you have in front of your fireplaces. Again, it can vary in shape and size. It needs to come well out though, so we're going to go 1000 millimeters out. So let's say 100 centimeters or 100 millimeters when we scale it down. And you've got a height of 60. That can vary. Draw a line across there. As we said, when these stoves are now put in, often there's a sheet of steel fixed there to cover off the fireplace, and a pipe goes in that way. Sometimes they can go up and around that way. Lots of variation on that. These fire stoves themselves vary in shape and size. I went for a standard size of 500 millimeters by 600 millimeters. So you can just basically draw a rectangle. Start somewhere about there. 500 millimeters. A height of 600 millimeters. That there is going to be our fire stove, our wood burning stove. Rub that out there. And then the pipe that comes out through it, that can also vary in shape and size. So put that into position there, 150 millimeters, which will guide the smoke out into this area here, the chimney. And then we're going to split that little sheet of steel there, let's say make it 2 or 3 millimeters thick. There. And there. And that is that drawing pretty much complete. It's something quite new, bit of practice, and when you look at it, it's actually quite straightforward. The last thing that we need to do then is get our label work done. Okay, so at this point now we just need to add our labels, and as always you try and be neat and tidy with the labels, don't have lines displayed all over the place, nice and neat and tidy writing and so on. We don't need to label anything twice either. So all this work here, as you can see, all the stuff goes out to the left, a few bits, there's a bit of space down there, and then we're going to label some parts over here as well. So I'm just going to go over to this area here, and I'm going to label the wall and all those other parts on the left hand side first of all. So we've got 100mm outer block, we've got the cavity, we've got 100mm cavity insulation, and we've got 100mm inner block. From there then we will we can label the infill cement here and here, so that's the backing cement supporting the fire back and the flue liners. There we'll label the fire back. There we'll label the heart. Again, that can vary in size, but we'll make ours 1000 by 60mm heart. There we can label our DPC and our radon also, and radon burger. There. Now, we'll just come down here, we'll label some of the parts on the bottom, so we'll do the foundation. Um, 1500 at this point by 300 reinforced foundation. We have the 550mm course work or block work or jams. We can label our hardcore 150 hardcore layers. We can label our sand blinding down here maybe as well in the space. There. And we'll use this space up here then to label some of the rest of the parts that we have. So we've got 100mm insulation here. So that's the concrete floor, 150mm. And we've got 100mm insulation. There. We've got the again the wood burning stove itself. Again, they vary in size, but in our case we went 500 millimeters by 600 millimeters wood burning stove. There, we've got a 150 millimeter chimney pipe, and that can vary in size. There. The precast concrete lintel, I'm going to have to bring a line up at an angle to there. So precast concrete lintel. There. And then the flue liners themselves, which we spoke about, 200 millimeter diameter. Again, they can vary in size, but for the sake of this drawing, 200 millimeter diameter flue liner. And that is that drawing fully labelled and fully complete.